Ladies and gentlemen, love is one of the most powerful and universal experiences in the world. It inspires poetry, fuels revolutions, and gives meaning to even the smallest gestures. But if we're honest, love is also one of the most misunderstood concepts we grapple with. Many of us have been conditioned to think of love as something we find outside ourselves, a person, a place, or even a feeling that completes us. We talk about finding love like it's a scavenger hunt, something we'll stumble upon if we're lucky enough, attractive enough, or deserving enough. But this perspective sets us up for heartache because it makes love contingent on factors we can't always control. What happens when we don't find it? What happens when the person we hoped would love us doesn't? Or when the love we thought we had fades? The truth is, love begins long before anyone else enters the picture. Love begins with belonging to yourself. And that's not just a fluffy, feel-good idea, it's foundational. You cannot give or receive love authentically if you haven't learned to embrace yourself first. Belonging to yourself starts with recognizing that you are worthy of love and connection exactly as you are. No prerequisites, no checklist, no F's or wins yet. For so many of us, this feels counterintuitive. We've been taught that belonging is something we earn. We tell ourselves, I'll belong when I lose the weight, get the promotion, find the partner, or prove my worth. We carry these conditions like heavy suitcases, thinking they'll lead us to where we're supposed to be. But instead, they weigh us down and keep us from the very thing we're searching for. The first step in belonging to yourself is letting go of those conditions. It's about standing in front of the mirror, both literally and metaphorically, and saying, I am enough not because you're perfect, but because you're human. It's about embracing the parts of yourself that you've hidden away, the ones you've been told aren't lovable. Your quirks, your scars, your messy, imperfect self, they're all part of the story that makes you who you are. But belonging to yourself isn't just a mindset, it's a practice. It's the daily work of choosing self-compassion over self-criticism. It's speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love. Imagine a close friend coming to you after a hard day, feeling defeated and unworthy. Would you tell them they're not good enough? That they should try harder to deserve love? Of course not. You'd remind them of their strengths, their resilience, and their inherent worth. So why do we talk to ourselves so differently? Belonging to yourself also means setting boundaries. For many of us, the idea of boundaries feels uncomfortable. We worry about disappointing others, being seen as selfish, or losing relationships. But boundaries are not about keeping people out, they're about keeping your sense of self intact. They're a way of saying, this is who I am, and this is what I need to honor, that when you prioritize your needs and values, you reinforce the belief that you are worth protecting and cherishing. And then there's vulnerability. You cannot belong to yourself without being vulnerable with yourself. This might sound strange. How can you be vulnerable with yourself? But think about it. How often do you avoid your own feelings? How often do you distract yourself with work, social media, or other people's problems because sitting with your own pain feels too hard? Belonging to yourself means creating space to feel everything, the joy, the grief, the anger, the love. It means being honest about what you want, what you fear, and what you dream of, even if those truths scare you. Here's the paradox. The more you belong to yourself, the more love you'll find. But not because you're chasing it or demanding it from others. When you belong to yourself, you show up differently. You show up as someone who doesn't need to be completed because you already feel whole. You show up with the confidence to say, this is me, and I'm worthy of love, and that energy, authentic, grounded, and unapologetically you invites real connection. Too often, we look to others to fill the gaps we feel inside ourselves. We expect partners to fix what's broken, friends to validate our worth, or achievements to prove we're enough. But belonging to yourself means recognizing that no one else can do that work for you. It's an inside job. And the good news is you already have everything you need to start. Belonging to yourself also means embracing the messy parts of your humanity. You will make mistakes. You will have moments of self-doubt and insecurity. There will be days when you don't feel particularly lovable, even to yourself. That's okay. Self-belonging isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it's hard, and saying, I'm here, I've got you. Finally, belonging to yourself is an act of courage. It takes courage to go against a culture that constantly tells us we're not enough. It takes courage to stop looking outward for love and start looking inward. It takes courage to say, I deserve love, not because of what I do or who I please, but simply because I exist. Belonging to yourself isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's a commitment you make every day to treat yourself with the love, respect, and kindness you deserve. And when you make that commitment, you create the foundation for all other forms of love to grow. When we think about love, many of us instinctively imagine it as something external, something to be found, pursued, or captured. We dream about the perfect partner who will complete us, the unconditional approval from family or friends, or the recognition that validates our worth. But this outward focus often leads us away from the very thing we're searching for, because in seeking love outside ourselves, we risk neglecting what's happening within. The truth is, the desire for external love is often rooted in a deep longing for validation. We look for others to confirm what we struggle to believe about ourselves, that we are lovable, worthy, and enough. It's a natural human impulse, after all. Connection is essential for survival. But when this need for connection becomes a relentless quest for external approval, it can leave us feeling more disconnected than ever. One of the most common traps we fall into is the belief that love from others will fill the gaps we feel inside ourselves. We think, if only someone loved me, then I'd feel whole, or if I could just be in a relationship, I'd finally be happy. But the problem with this thinking is that it places the responsibility for our sense of worth on someone else's shoulders. It asks others to do the heavy lifting of fixing parts of us that only we can heal. When we seek love outward without doing the inward work, we often end up in relationships that mirror our insecurities rather than our strengths. For example, if you don't believe you're enough, you might gravitate toward people who reinforce that belief, partners who are critical or withholding, or friendships that feel one-sided. These dynamics aren't random, they're reflections of the unhealed parts of ourselves. In seeking external love, we may also lose sight of our authenticity. We try to become what we think others want us to be: agreeable, attractive, successful, or easy to love. We mold ourselves to fit into someone else's idea of perfect, hoping it will earn us the connection we crave. But the problem with this approach is that it comes at a cost. The more we try to be what others want, the further we stray from who we truly are. And without authenticity, love loses its depth and meaning. Another challenge of seeking love outward is the cycle of disappointment it can create. When we place our happiness in someone else's hands, we set ourselves up for frustration. No matter how much someone loves us, they can't meet all our emotional needs. They're human, after all. This isn't a reflection of their shortcomings, it's a reminder that some needs can only be met from within. This outward focus also distracts us from doing the work of self-love. We become so consumed with trying to earn love from others that we forget to nurture our relationship with ourselves. We overlook the importance of understanding our own feelings, desires, and boundaries. Instead of asking, what do I truly need, we ask, what do they want from me? This shift in focus leaves us disconnected from our inner world, making it harder to build a foundation of self-worth. At its core, the outward search for love is often a way of avoiding discomfort. It's easier to look for someone else to affirm our value than to sit with the vulnerability of our own feelings. It's easier to chase external validation than to confront the fear that we might not be enough. But ignoring what's inward doesn't make those fears go away. It simply buries them deeper, where they continue to influence our choices in ways we may not even realize. Ironically, the more we ignore our inner selves, the harder it becomes to truly connect with others. Authentic love requires vulnerability, a willingness to be seen, flaws and all. But if we haven't done the inner work of accepting ourselves, it's nearly impossible to show up authentically in a relationship. Instead, we present a version of ourselves that feels safe hiding the parts we fear might be rejected. This creates a barrier to genuine connection, leaving us feeling isolated even in the presence of love. The alternative to seeking love outward is turning inward. This doesn't mean rejecting relationships or isolating ourselves. It means shifting the focus from seeking love to cultivating it within. It's about recognizing that the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for every other relationship in your life. Turning inward requires courage. It means facing the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding, the insecurities, fears, and wounds we carry. It means asking hard questions. Why do I feel unworthy? What am I afraid of? What do I need to heal? These questions aren't easy, but they're essential. Because until we address what's happening inside, no amount of external love will feel like enough. Cultivating inward love also means learning to meet your own needs. This doesn't mean you never rely on others. Human connection is vital, but it does mean recognizing where you've been outsourcing your happiness. It's about building a relationship with yourself that feels supportive, nurturing, and kind. This might look like setting boundaries, practicing self-compassion, or simply taking time to listen to your own thoughts and feelings. When we focus inward, something powerful happens. We stop approaching love from a place of scarcity. Instead of thinking, I need someone to love me so I'll feel whole, we start to believe, I am whole and I have love to share. This shift doesn't just transform our relationship with ourselves, it transforms the way we show up in every relationship. The journey of inward love is not linear or easy. There will be moments of doubt and struggle. But it's a journey worth taking because it leads us to a kind of love that is unshakable, a love that doesn't depend on others to exist. And when we cultivate that kind of love within ourselves, we create a foundation for deeper, more authentic connections with others. The notion of love as something we find has been deeply ingrained in our culture. We see it in fairy tales, romantic comedies, and even in the way people talk about relationships like love is a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered by those lucky enough to stumble upon it. But this idea can lead us astray because love is not something that happens to us by chance or fate. It's not a prize we win or a missing piece we uncover. Love, in its truest form, is built. The misconception that love is something we find can set unrealistic expectations. It leads us to believe that if we meet the right person, everything will fall into place effortlessly. We imagine that a perfect partner will magically understand us, meet all our needs, and make us feel complete. But this fantasy ignores the reality of what love truly requires: work, intention, and a willingness to grow. Love isn't a spark that sustains itself indefinitely. It's more like a fire that needs tending. The initial spark, what we often call infatuation or chemistry, might light the fire, but keeping it alive requires effort. You have to add fuel, clear away the ashes, and protect it from the wind. Without this care, even the strongest fire will eventually burn out. Building love starts with presence. It's about showing up not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. It's about being fully present with another person, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. In a world full of distractions, this can be harder than it sounds. How often do we half listen to our loved ones while scrolling through our phones or let our minds wander when they're speaking? True love is built in those small moments when we choose to be fully engaged, to truly see and hear the other person. Another essential part of building love is vulnerability. Love requires us to lower our defenses and let someone see us as we truly are, flaws, fears, and all. This isn't easy. Many of us have been hurt before, and it's natural to want to protect ourselves. But building love means taking that risk. It means saying, this is me, and I'm trusting you to handle my heart with care. Vulnerability is the foundation on which love is built, because without it, connection becomes shallow and superficial. Trust is another cornerstone of building love. And trust doesn't appear overnight. It's earned through consistent actions over time. It's built in the small, everyday moments when we show up for each other, keep our promises, and prove that we can be relied upon. Trust is also about repair. No relationship is perfect, and there will inevitably be times when we let each other down. Building trust means acknowledging those moments, taking responsibility, and working to make things right. Love is also built through communication. This might seem obvious, but real communication goes far beyond casual conversation. It's not just about talking, it's about understanding. It's about being willing to have the hard conversations, to express your needs and listen to your partners, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about asking, how can I support you, and being open to hearing, this is where I need you to grow. Building love also requires intentionality. We often think of love as a feeling, but it's also a choice, one we make every day. It's choosing to prioritize your relationship even when life gets busy. It's choosing kindness when you're frustrated and patience when you're tired. It's choosing to invest in the relationship, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. One of the biggest misconceptions about love is that it's supposed to be easy. And while love can bring incredible joy, it also comes with challenges. There will be disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But these challenges don't mean the love isn't real. They're an opportunity to grow together. Building love means leaning into these moments, working through them instead of walking away. It means seeing conflict not as a threat, but as a chance to deepen your understanding of each other. Building love also means embracing imperfection. No one is perfect, and no relationship is either. There will be moments when you or your partner fall short, say the wrong thing, or fail to meet each other's expectations. Building love means choosing grace in those moments. It means saying, I see your imperfections, and I love you anyway. It means forgiving when necessary and being willing to start again. Building love is a process. It's something that evolves over time. It's built through shared experiences, both big and small. It's built in the moments of laughter and joy, as well as the moments of struggle and pain. It's built in the everyday acts of care and consideration that show your partner they matter. It's important to remember that building love isn't just about what you do for someone else, it's also about how you show up for yourself. A healthy, lasting love requires two whole, self-aware people who can meet each other as equals. This means doing your own inner work, addressing your own insecurities, and taking responsibility for your own happiness. You can't build a strong relationship on a shaky foundation, so building love also means investing in your relationship with yourself. The idea that love is built rather than found is both liberating and challenging. It's liberating because it puts the power in our hands. We don't have to wait for the right person to come along or for fate to intervene. But it's also challenging because it asks something of us. It requires effort, intention, and a willingness to grow. It asks us to take responsibility for the love we create rather than expecting it to appear on its own. Fear is a powerful force capable of shaping our choices, behaviors, and perceptions. One of the most universal fears we encounter is the fear of being alone. This fear can feel overwhelming, even primal, as though our very survival depends on being connected to someone else. But when fear of being alone takes the lead in our lives, it clouds our vision, distorting how we see ourselves, others, and the relationships we choose to pursue or stay in. The fear of being alone often stems from a deeper fear of inadequacy. We tell ourselves that if we're alone, it must mean something is wrong with us, that we're unlovable, undesirable, or somehow not enough. This internal dialogue is rarely spoken aloud, but it plays on repeat in the back of our minds, influencing how we approach love and connection. Instead of seeking relationships that nourish and uplift us, we may settle for relationships that simply stave off the ache of loneliness, even if they lack genuine fulfillment. This fear also has a way of convincing us that any relationship is better than no relationship. It whispers that companionship, even unhealthy or one-sided, is preferable to solitude. We stay in relationships that drain us, tolerate behaviors that hurt us, and accept less than we deserve because the alternative, being alone, feels unbearable. But in doing so, we sacrifice something far more important: the chance to build a life and a love that align with our true needs and values. When we let the fear of being alone guide us, it's as if we're looking at the world through a fogged lens. Our perception becomes skewed. We might overvalue certain qualities in a partner simply because they fill the space of loneliness, mistaking compatibility or convenience for true connection. We might overlook red flags, rationalize toxic behaviors, or ignore our own boundaries in order to maintain the illusion of togetherness. In these moments, the fear of being alone blinds us to the reality that some relationships do more harm than good. This fear also prevents us from being honest with ourselves and others. In the rush to avoid solitude, we might downplay our own needs, pretending to be okay with situations or dynamics that don't truly serve us. We might suppress our feelings, avoid difficult conversations, or convince ourselves to accept less because we don't want to risk losing the relationship altogether. But this dishonesty comes at a cost. It erodes trust, not just with others, but within ourselves. Ironically, the fear of being alone can actually make us feel more isolated. When we prioritize staying in a relationship, any relationship, over being true to ourselves, we lose touch with who we are. This disconnection from our own desires and values creates a sense of loneliness that no amount of external companionship can fill. It's a reminder that being in a relationship doesn't necessarily mean we feel connected, and being alone doesn't have to mean we feel lonely. The fear of being alone also limits our growth. Solitude, while often uncomfortable, is one of the most powerful spaces for self-discovery. It's in the quiet moments of being alone that we can truly hear ourselves, our dreams, fears, and desires. It's where we learn who we are without the influence of others, where we begin to understand what we need and deserve in a relationship. But when we avoid solitude at all costs, we miss out on this opportunity to grow, and we risk carrying our unexamined fears and patterns into every relationship we enter. Another way the fear of being alone clouds our vision is by making us forget the value of choice. Instead of actively choosing relationships that align with our values and aspirations, we may fall into relationships by default simply because they offer an escape from loneliness. But love isn't something that happens to us, it's something we choose and build intentionally. Allowing fear to dictate our choices takes away our agency, leaving us in relationships that may not truly align with who we are or what we need. This fear also perpetuates the idea that our worth is tied to our relationship status. We internalize societal messages that tell us we're only valuable if we're coupled up, that being single is a problem to be solved, or that being alone is something to be ashamed of. These messages compound our fear, making it feel even more urgent to find and hold onto a relationship. But these narratives are false. Our worth isn't determined by whether or not someone chooses us, it's inherent and unchanging. Overcoming the fear of being alone isn't about suppressing it or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about facing it with compassion and curiosity. It's about asking, what am I really afraid of? Where does this fear come from? And how can I soothe it without compromising my integrity? These questions help us move from a place of fear to a place of empowerment, where we can make choices that honor both our needs and our values. When we embrace the possibility of being alone, we reclaim our power. We realize that our worth isn't dependent on someone else's presence, that we are capable of creating a fulfilling life on our own. This doesn't mean we don't desire connection. It means we approach it from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. We choose relationships that enhance our lives, not ones that simply fill a void. Fear of being alone clouds our vision, but it's not a permanent fog. With awareness and intention, we can clear it away, allowing ourselves to see more clearly not just the relationships around us, but the relationship we have with ourselves. Perfection is a seductive illusion, especially when it comes to love. We are often drawn to the idea of the perfect partner, the perfect relationship, or even being the perfect version of ourselves. These ideals are reinforced by media, culture, and societal expectations, shaping our understanding of love in ways that can be deeply restrictive. Yet the pursuit of perfection in love often leads to frustration, disappointment, and disconnection. It sets impossible standards that no one can meet and creates an environment where love struggles to grow. Letting go of perfection, however, creates space for love to thrive in its most authentic and fulfilling form. At the heart of perfectionism in love lies a fear of vulnerability. We believe that if we can achieve perfection, whether in ourselves or in our relationships, we can avoid the discomfort of being seen as flawed or inadequate. Perfectionism becomes a shield, protecting us from the pain of rejection, criticism, or failure. But this shield also keeps us from experiencing the true intimacy that comes with allowing ourselves to be fully seen and fully loved, imperfections and all. When we cling to the idea of perfection, we place unrealistic expectations on ourselves and our partners. We expect our relationships to be smooth, harmonious, and without conflict. We imagine that love should always feel easy, effortless, and magical. But real love doesn't work that way. Love is messy, complex, and sometimes challenging. It requires patience, communication, and a willingness to navigate difficult moments together. The pursuit of perfection, however, can make us quick to judge or give up when reality doesn't match our idealized vision. In relationships, perfectionism often manifests as a tendency to focus on what's wrong rather than what's right. We become hyper-aware of our partner's flaws, scrutinizing their every action, word, or behavior for signs that they don't measure up to our ideal. This critical mindset can erode trust and connection, making it difficult for love to flourish. It creates an environment of pressure and judgment rather than acceptance and understanding. Perfectionism can also show up in the way we view ourselves within relationships. We might feel the need to present a flawless version of ourselves to our partner, hiding our insecurities, struggles, or mistakes. This creates a false sense of who we are, making it hard for genuine connection to occur. Love thrives on authenticity. And when we're constantly striving to be perfect, we deny our partner the chance to love us for who we truly are. Another way perfectionism stifles love is by fostering a fear of failure. We may avoid taking risks in love, whether that means opening up emotionally, committing to a relationship, or addressing difficult issues because we're afraid of making mistakes. But mistakes are an inevitable part of any relationship. They're how we learn, grow, and deepen our understanding of each other. When we let go of the need to be perfect, we allow ourselves the freedom to make mistakes and the opportunity to repair and grow stronger as a result. Letting go of perfection also means embracing the imperfections of the people we love. It's about recognizing that no one is perfect, and that's okay. In fact, it's often our imperfections that make us unique and lovable. When we stop expecting our partners to fit into an idealized mold, we create space for them to show up as their authentic selves. This doesn't mean we ignore harmful behaviors or settle for less than we deserve, but it does mean we approach our relationships with empathy, compassion, and a willingness to accept the humanity of the people we love. Letting go of perfection doesn't mean lowering our standards or giving up on the idea of a healthy, fulfilling relationship. It means shifting our focus from perfection to growth. Instead of striving for a flawless relationship, we aim for a resilient one-one where both partners are committed to learning, adapting, and supporting each other through life's ups and downs. A resilient relationship isn't free of challenges, but it's grounded in trust, communication, and a shared willingness to navigate those challenges together. One of the most liberating aspects of letting go of perfection is the way it fosters gratitude. When we stop fixating on what our relationship or partner lacks, we begin to notice and appreciate what they bring to our lives. We become more attuned to the small moments of love and connection, the kind gesture, the shared laughter, the quiet comfort of simply being together. Gratitude helps us see our relationships in a new light, cultivating a sense of abundance rather than scarcity. Letting go of perfection also allows us to experience love as it is, rather than as we think it should be. It invites us to embrace the beauty of imperfection, the quirks, idiosyncrasies, and unique dynamics that make each relationship special. It reminds us that love isn't about fitting into a predetermined ideal, it's about creating something meaningful and authentic with another person. Ultimately, letting go of perfection is an act of liberation. It frees us from the pressure to perform, the fear of failure, and the endless pursuit of an unattainable ideal. It opens the door to deeper connection, greater self-acceptance, and a more fulfilling experience of love. Perfection may be an illusion, but love in all its messy, imperfect glory is real, and it's more than enough. Love is not a treasure to be found, a puzzle to be solved, or a perfection to be attained. It is a dynamic, living experience that requires intention, effort, and courage. It begins within us in the way we nurture our sense of belonging, embrace our imperfections, and quiet the fear of solitude. Love is built, not discovered, and it thrives not in the shadow of perfection, but in the light of authenticity and growth. When we stop chasing external ideals or letting fear dictate our choices, we create space for something deeper and truer. We learn that the love we seek outward must first be cultivated inward, and that the relationships we build flourish only when rooted in trust, vulnerability, and mutual respect. By letting go of what holds us back, the need to be perfect, the fear of being alone, we free ourselves to experience love in its most honest and transformative form. Love is not a fixed destination, it's a journey, one we embark on with openness, humility, and a willingness to grow. And the most profound discovery along the way is this: the love we create, nurture, and give is what defines its depth and meaning.